Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we try to simplify the college planning process for families of kiddos thinking about going to college. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Just great. Glad to be here. It's crisp and chilly and very nice outside.
Yeah, and it's also the beginning of our spring semester, which gets
Oh yeah,
way, way busy for seniors.
yeah. Everybody's saying first day back to school.
Yes. So we need to get families prepped for what they need to make sure to accomplish during their senior year and this time of
Absolutely.
year. And because this is kind of the big one, right? So we
Hmm.
are going to break this into two segments to make sure that we can get through everything and not overwhelm anybody because we know that we don't want to do that either.
That's right.
So
There's so much to do that last semester of high school. It's busy.
it is busy. And by the way, we want our kiddos to have fun too and enjoy their senior
Yep.
year. So the more we can kind of knock out and get you guys feeling prepared, I think the better. So, Bobby, you want to start us off?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are just mechanical. About the last semester of high school. You got to plan for graduation. You got to get gowns, get your senior photo, and all that. But it's time to start looking now forward to college, and it seems easy to be like, okay, we've got our acceptance letter. Now we can just wait till July or August and figure it out. But you need to start thinking about college, and the first most important thing is to start thinking about what the whole point of college is, which is certainly to have fun and meet people and expand your horizons, but to go and pick a major and decide what kind of, you know, job you might want to get in the future. That's what it's got to be about. So it's time to start thinking about
It is. And, you said this, but I just want parents to really think about this. And that is getting these kiddos prepared for being successful in
that.
college, not
Yeah.
just getting in, but let's get them prepared to be successful. And, to do that, you really have to get them feeling good about why they're going in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah.
And be talking about that and thinking about that. And, of course, what's near and dear to my heart is figuring out what kind of career path and major.
Hmm.
Because, guys, the stats show kids that go into college knowing what they want as an end goal and knowing what they want to do as far as a major, they've got more of an opportunity to graduate in 4 years, which is not the
Hmm.
norm,
Yep.
and to enjoy their time in college. Less
Yeah.
anxiety, less stress, because they have kind of a complete picture of why they're going and what they're trying to get accomplished in the end, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that, like we talk about how, you know, students who change their major or just most students don't graduate in 4 years. They take extra time, which is expensive, which can interfere with your scholarships. Maybe that extra year wouldn't be covered. But it's also just like each time you change your major, generally that means there are some classes that you took that don't really apply anymore. And so even if you're going to graduate in 4 years, you have to take a heavier course load usually, right? And so if you plan it out from the beginning and you're able to figure out what, exactly your major ought to be and what you want to do, you're likely to be able to take smaller course loads each semester to plan ahead and get that one class that's really hard to find, and all that. Now, that doesn't mean that you might not change your mind while you're in there, but at least you thought about it and had a good idea of what your strengths are and what generally kind of area might make you happy before you
Yeah,
go.
and I'll do my little hand,
Yeah.
program for parents that haven't seen us do this before. But if these are all the career paths that you could ever even think are out there, the
Mhm.
goal is to get those kids into this pie shape so that they at least can be building upon
Mhm.
their learning, right? And we're getting rid of
Right.
a lot of white noise because
Mhm.
in getting them into this space. The
Mhm.
importance of that is they're not going in and doing a 180 on majors,
Mhm.
right? They may
Yeah,
be making a course correction within the pie shape if we can figure out kind of the direction that they're thinking they want to go. So
for sure.
yeah, and us talking about this, Bobby, I think sometimes people are thinking that, we're expecting these kids to have this epiphany and all of a sudden they're like, da, 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 I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
that's
that's not
really
what it's about.
no, that's not what it's about at all. It's really about, what things do interest you? What things do you have skill or knowledge about? Where are your natural talents or your
Mhm.
strengths? And
Yeah.
let's at least start focusing their attention on, the pie shape and
Mhm.
just helping them to feel comfortable and confident that they've already thought about all those other things that they've ruled out,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and really it is just what things make your eyes light up, make you get excited because I mean if you're going to go get a job and work in an industry for years and years, well you'd like to have a job that makes your eyes light up when you start thinking about it, right? That's going to make it a lot easier to get up and go to work in the morning, you know?
Yes, and I'll do my shameless plug, and I'll put this
Mhm.
in the chat too, but we have, I've got classes starting in January and February to help
Mhm.
kiddos think through this process. So, as a family, if you don't feel like that's something that you wanna take on, definitely call me up and I will talk to you about my Pick the Right Major class, which, punchline on that is we spend about 95% of the time talking about a career path, and
Mhm.
once you've got that narrowed down, the major is pretty
Yeah, it takes
simple to
care of
figure out.
itself. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And I mean, I've had students take your course before and they've been really, really happy with the results. I think it really helped them enter college knowing a lot more about themselves and what they wanted to do. And so I really recommend to my students that they do that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you talked about the money, Bobby, which I think is hugely important, and
Hmm.
that's I'm frugal, and I
Hmm.
I like to make sure that I'm saving money where I can. Um, but so I think that's a big piece of this. And I
Hmm.
did some math on this, and I figured it costs about 10 grand every time your kid changes his major.
Oh my
Now, and
gosh.
that's
Yeah, that
probably on
makes
the
sense.
low end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a minimum. Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
and
Yeah.
for the reasons you brought up earlier, and that is because maybe the classes aren't transferring, maybe they now need to, if they do need to drop a couple classes here and there, just
Hmm.
with normal stuff,
Yep.
all of a sudden that starts to multiply and now we're taking extra semesters to graduate. And
Hmm.
on average, it's taking kiddos 5 years to graduate. So
Hmm.
if we can get them down to that 4-year plan, that would be maximize your money for college.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the
Yep.
most important thing. And so that's something to start thinking about. And then the main thing is it would really help to have students be in your course or working with you one-on-one, as opposed to just like I'm afraid if in a lot of families, parents kind of just tell their kid what they think they ought to do. And that's more like what the parent wishes they had done, and so you
That
need a third party to
Yeah, and
really look
here's
at
the
the
other
kids.
thing. A lot of times kids know what they know, and they don't have a
Mhm.
ton of experiences yet, right?
Yeah,
So if dad was a lawyer or a doctor or a
sure.
policeman or, whatever, mom was a realtor or a nurse or a, doctor, et cetera, then that's what they know. So a lot of times they
Mhm.
gravitate towards those things that they know, but that may not be the right path for them.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, and then we'll go on to the next subject, but
Yeah.
it's much easier for kids to just check that box and say, yeah, mom thinks I should do that, so I'll just do that," because this
Mhm.
is a hard decision and there's no deadline, there's no test score to tell you you did well.
Right.
It takes some thought and it's
Absolutely.
uncomfortable. And, you've got to ask yourself some hard questions on what do I want to do for the next,
Mhm.
20, 30, 40 years. So it's easy
Yep.
to brush that one under the table for now because it's a lot of kids don't know how to go down that path and how to figure it out.
Mhm.
So that's what I don't want them to do is postpone this because then
Absolutely.
once they get into college, then we know the anxiety and stress and everything else starts to boil up. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So, the next thing in is learning about fraternities, sororities, and other clubs.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, you and I have talked about the Gallup Purdue study where we know
Mhm.
to be successful in college, you got to get involved.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
actually a predictor, getting involved is actually a predictor of lifelong happiness.
Mhm.
So, it's hugely
Absolutely.
important. Yeah. So, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just yeah, that a lot of students and I think we've all known people who went to college, didn't get involved in anything, kind of fell into a depressed state, felt like they had no friends, and then they end up transferring or dropping out, right? And you and it's so easy to fall into these rhythms, these habits where you just every day you do the same thing, and which is nothing, right? It's so easy to do. And so if every community club activity, whatever it is that you join, is a reason to get out of bed and go do stuff, and then it adds to enjoyment, happiness, self-satisfaction. And yeah, that is, it builds these relationships that last the rest of your life, and it teaches you how to meet new people and different people, because in high school you don't have the same experience. In high school you're with the same group of people, and so you don't do that much meeting of new people in high school compared to college, right? That's it. And
Absolutely.
so the other thing is, yeah, it's easy to like look and say, okay, this college has fraternities and sororities, and make that be the only thing you look at. But it's really interesting to go look at the list of clubs, because there's going to be a million more organizations than you've ever heard of. And there will be and you'll run across something, you'll be like, well, I didn't know anyone else was interested in that. I thought I was the weirdo who was interested in, you know, whatever strange, just, like bird
Yes.
watching or whatever. And you're like, oh, I actually am
Embody.
interested in that.
No, you bird watching. I love it. But it is hugely important because I say this all the time to my clients. I'm like, guys, high school is about fitting in.
Yeah.
College is about finding your people and really getting into the stuff that truly lights you up and,
Hmm.
get your internal fires burning, right? And
Yeah.
if it's bird watching, yay. I couldn't believe when my boys were going to college how many organizations there are and how many opportunities there are to meet
Hmm.
other people, but you have to put yourself out there.
Absolutely.
And it's hugely important, for these kids to learn how to, as you said, to meet people because this is fairly new to a lot of the kids.
Yeah,
So
and so I think with a lot of students, like, I'll say, if I'm helping them with this college stuff, say, when you're selecting colleges, go through the list of colleges, go research and find three colleges you've never heard of that sound interesting, right? Same thing, go through the list of clubs, find three things that you're like, wow, I can't believe they even have this. And just by going through the list, then yeah, it's just a fun thing to do. And
and then the
yeah,
other
most
thing I
colleges have like an organizations fair in the first week, and you can go and meet people from each organization.
they do, however, for the kids that are thinking about fraternities and sororities,
Mhm.
you got to get ahead of that one
Oh
because
my gosh, yeah.
they are doing Rush so much earlier these days and having get-togethers in your area. They're running you up on campus. You've got to get ahead of it because if you don't, your kid's not going to get in.
Absolutely. If you
Yeah.
think about the way it was maybe when you went to school, it was, even then there was a little that, there was stuff that happened before, but it is a lot more now. And so you can't just show up on campus and think, oh, I'm just going to go show up to the rush. No, you have to look into it now, find an organization of, find an online forum where people talk about what it's like at your school and go learn about
Yep.
it.
Make it happen.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure.
Plan to visit your college before accepting. So,
Yeah, if you didn't already visit it last summer, the summer after junior year, if you haven't visited yet, yeah, it's time to go make a visit. Absolutely, yes.
yeah, and let's talk about why. So we talked about the fraternities, the organizations, the clubs, all that
Mhm.
stuff. It's going to get you prepped for that. The other thing it is now you're walking on campus with this idea of, oh, I'm going to live here.
Yeah.
And things change. You notice different things than when it's just
Hmm.
like, ooh, fun. Okay, I'm hanging out, checking out this
Right.
college. You're watching people. You might get to go in and talk to one of your professors if you've
Hmm.
got your major picked out. You can go and at least talk to the school of within the college that you're
Hmm.
going to be a part of, right? The whether that be engineering or medical or all the different things. There's so many.
Hmm.
The business school, and you can spend a little bit more time in those buildings and all that good
Hmm.
stuff. So take advantage of that. And I think too, what I've seen is, and I know it happened for my boys, and I talk to a lot of our clients tell us this stuff that it just helps them settle in and get
Hmm.
excited because we know at this time there's not only excitement, but there's a huge amount of fear that's coming their way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The more you can get comfortable with campus, I mean, my gosh, I remember everybody their first, 2 weeks on campus is lost. They don't know where buildings are. They don't know where anything is. It's very intimidating, right? And so, yeah, go every opportunity you can have to just learn the layout, learn where things are, and talk to. But I mean, at that point, once you know you're going there, the student giving you the tour will be much more interested to talk to you. The students you run into, you say, hey, I'm coming next year. They're going to be way more interested to talk to you. And I mean, it has happened. It happened to me. I mean, people that I met on the tour who were current students ended up being good friends of mine when I was at the school, so like they're going to be there when you get there, so.
I would tell you,
Yeah.
parents, one other thing. I think this is key, and you don't think about it. Figure out where the medical facilities are, and figure out
Yes.
what
Oh my gosh.
opportunities there are for mental health. Just in
Mhm.
case your
Oh
kiddo
man,
has this
something bad
stress and
happens.
anxiety. Yeah, and
Yeah, you know where to go.
even the kids that have never had it before,
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
is kind of that time that this creeps up, and it's on the rise with COVID, with everything else that we've seen. Um, we've got just suicide rates up, all that kind of stuff all over the
Mhm.
place. So figure that
Yeah,
out,
take that
guys.
time.
Yep, take the time. It's worth
Absolutely,
it.
because especially if you've never experienced anything like that before, you're not familiar with what to do. And so, yeah, it's good to just know here's where it is. Here's the things they offer. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
All right. Inform the schools you will that the schools that you will not be attending. So,
Yeah.
guys, this is just a smart move. You think about this when if you've got an acceptance letter, right? And you're
Hmm.
excited and you're getting all these great acceptances. There are kids that are on wait lists
Hmm.
across the country. And by you reaching out to the college and just saying, you know what, I'm going to decline, that opens up a spot for somebody else.
Absolutely. And there's another piece here too, which is, during all of this, you're going to get a financial aid package and it might include grants or scholarships or work study or whatever it might include. Right. And you might get those packages from more than one school offered to you. Right. And so as soon as you've decided on a school, go ahead and inform the other schools because that also frees up the financial aid for those other students. And if you're not satisfied with the financial aid package, have the student call up and talk to the financial aid office and say, hey, I'm looking at this because if you express interest, you'll be on a list. And like if other students then, turn down their scholarships, you might be on the list and say, okay, hey, we can move that grant from this person to you. That happens. It absolutely happens, but it doesn't happen by surprise. You have to ask, right? And so,
You
yeah,
do.
be courteous and go ahead and as soon as you know you're not going to attend a college, go ahead and reject that offer, so that they know and they can you know adjust appropriately.
Yeah, and here's an extra little tip that
Hmm.
is not on the timeline, and you alluded to it, and that is you can also use the colleges that you didn't accept. You can use those offers to negotiate with the school that you do want to accept.
Absolutely.
So, little
Yeah.
extra tip because you listened to the webcast. And by the way,
No. Yeah.
if you've got questions, go ahead and post them, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have
Of
too.
course. Always. Yes.
Yeah. All right. And the last piece on part one is check your mail and your email for admissions decisions and scholarships. Let's face it,
Right.
kids have not embraced email like we have.
Right.
And they haven't had to in most cases in high
Hmm.
school. That life is changing. So we need to get them prepared for adulting. This is part of this. And that is you got to get in there and check for this stuff, right? And jump
Hmm.
on. We just talked about possible scholarships, merit aid, all that stuff. You got to stay on top of it, right?
Hmm. Oh yeah, I mean this is so funny because I mean I think it is. I guess during COVID, a lot of students had to start checking their email more. But I have often had, I'll have students I send an email out and I get the response, "This mailbox is full," or things like that, right? And you can't. Once you're in college,
On
you're
it.
going to be getting stuff on via email all the time. And so that's part of what like I enjoy in my tutoring is that, I'm like, okay, student, you got to act like an adult. You're getting emails from me. I'm not texting it to you. I'm emailing it to you. You got to check your emails. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, it was pretty funny. This morning, I got an email from an angry person who is like, who are you and why am I scheduled for tutoring with you? And I went and looked and somebody had put in the wrong email address for their dad. And I'm like, well, okay, so they put in the wrong email address. I'll fix it, but you're still going to get reminder emails about the session because I can't change what email the student put in. So, it's just those things like you got to look in your spam folder. You got to look like, because yeah, you may find hey, respond, this week with this information about this scholarship or whatever, right? And if you don't look at that, you and yeah, like you may get some admissions stuff may come only via email. I know you're expecting, the big packet, but that's not the only thing. You're going to start getting emails from the housing people and all that, and you got to. I mean, my gosh, can you imagine if you missed the date to like secure your housing, dorm
Oh,
assignment?
that is a
That
big
is an
deal.
entire that could be like a 5 episode thing. Just college housing dorms is, I mean, what a mess, and so yeah, be on top of those things, watch out.
I'm taking a look at that. I'm glad you brought that up
Mhm.
because um, we don't cover that on
Yeah, we need to
the
add that in there
timeline.
because
We
yeah,
need to
like
add that.
there's yeah, paying your deposit, right? Because
Well,
you don't just accept, you better send in that deposit. And I have had people I know who forgot to pay their deposit, and suddenly you aren't going to college, and you have to
yes.
really beg to get that fixed.
And this part's really important. So for everybody that's listening, it's
Yep.
jump on there the very first day that you have the ability to jump
Oh,
on. And especially if they've already got somebody
100%.
that they want a room with, it's hugely important. The other thing is if think about this, if your
Mhm.
kid does not get in to a dorm because they're too full,
Yep.
that first semester, I will tell you, is hell because they're just feeling
Oh, you
not
feel left out.
settled
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
they're getting into a new situation, they're not feeling settled, and it happens.
Mhm.
It happens all the time. In
Oh,
fact, I was
absolutely.
just talking to an old friend of mine that it happened to her
Mhm.
back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And she still talks about how
Yeah.
uncomfortable and it was just miserable. So,
Yeah.
it really is kind of a big thing, and you need to handle that, like, right now.
Yeah, and so I guess that kind of wraps this all up, which is just like there are a lot of mechanical things to do in the spring semester, and they're super important. And it's like, okay, don't wait. You can't do this stuff in the summer. You got to do it right now. And I know you feel overwhelmed with, graduation pictures and gowns and all that stuff, right? And AP tests and all those things. And we'll talk more about the other stuff. There's still a lot more to talk about. We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, next week,
Yeah.
same time, same place. And for those of you that would like to download the timeline, it will give you all these things that we talked about,
Mhm.
very simplified. So you can go in, check off the box, make sure you're feeling very comfortable that you know what needs to get accomplished. And to Bobby's point, we'll be talking a lot more about the check the box type stuff next week. This week we really covered some of the more explore and
Mhm.
being smart about what you're doing as far as college planning. We'll get a lot more into the tactical stuff next week. So,
Absolutely.
all
Yeah,
right.
this is great. And of course, anytime anybody has any questions, you can show up for these, ask us questions. You can also just contact me or Kristen directly on our website. Happy to do a free consultation if you want to talk about ACT, SAT tutoring, anything like that. Just let me know. Um, all right, this is great.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you
Mhm.
next week.
All right, bye bye.